Now to a couple of joyful, tolerant lefties triggered by the question, what is a woman?
What is a woman?
Can you tell me what a woman is? Because clearly you're really confused, and that's okay. It's okay to be confused.
Well, I'm confused. That's why I'm asking.
Okay.
So if you were to define it, what would it?
I'm really sorry for the loss of your brain cells.
You can't even define what a woman is, and you're saying I've lost brain cells?
You're the one who's asking, idiot. All right.
And while we are triggering lefties, here is the astute Jason L. Riley dropping some hard facts about the Obama and Trump eras and black prosperity.
You have to realize how bad things got, particularly for blacks, under the Obama presidency economically. Unemployment, which never reached double digits for whites under Obama, did not fall below double digits for blacks until the third month of Obama's 7th year in office. Under Trump, black unemployment fell to 50-year lows. Black poverty fell to its lowest level on record. You saw black wages rising at more than 15% among blacks, but only 11% among whites. It may not seem like a lot, but that's a 36% difference. That is not just a continuation of something that was happening under Obama, as some people like to dismiss it. It was an acceleration. For the lowest income earners in this country, their wages under the first 3 years of the Trump administration grew at more than double the rate during Obama's second term. This was an acceleration.
We're going to have plenty more lefties losing it content with my next guest, including more of the real Kamala, you know, the one who has been the border czar, who has overseen record numbers come in illegally through that southern border and also implemented programs to allow millions more to stay. She now wants you to believe she's tough on borders. She even said she believes in a wall now. But here she is in 2018 leading a chant calling for an end to deportations.
Down with deportation, up with education, 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 down with deportation.
Enough of that, please. Let's cross to Florida now to speak to Newsweek's senior editor-at-large and senior counsel for the Article 3 project, Josh Hammer. Josh, let me guess, she's changed her position on that too, though she tells us she hasn't changed her values. Is anyone still buying this baloney?
Well, what are Kamala Harris's values? I'm not sure that she would be able to identify it if she were asked that point blank in an interview. An interview, by the way, which she happens to not be giving because she is still not given a fulsome sit-down interview since she bloodlessly cooed her purported boss, Joe Biden, back in July. You know, Trump has been at times struggling to try to land a go-to nickname for Kamala Harris. He has his trademark nicknames. There was, of course, Little Marco and Lion Ted Cruz in 2016 and all of that. You know, I mean, some people think that it should be Kamala because she's pretty communist leaning, you might say. I think another alternative possibility might be Camellia because she's a chameleon. I mean, she is just a total chameleon. I mean, something that she says in 2018 or 2019, 2020, who knows if she's going to believe it tomorrow, to say nothing about 3 to 4 or 5 years from now. You know, looking at the Electoral College map, I actually was playing around with my map earlier today, kind of doing some different alternative scenarios. It's really going to come down to Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, in my opinion, is really the #1 battleground state this November. Are the voters in Pennsylvania, when they are informed that Kamala Harris supported a full ban on fracking oil and natural gas as recently as 2020, how are they going to react to that? I mean, she could pretend like she didn't mean it. She could pretend like she holds a different position now. But how are you possibly supposed to believe her, especially when she refuses to sit down for an actual interview with any interviewer across the entire spectrum, even a friendly interview?
Now, you mentioned Pennsylvania. Donald Trump's going to be back there. He's going to the site of the first attempt on his life where a bullet nicked his ear after a last millisecond head turn saved his life. It's still incredible to think about. He's going to be holding another rally in Butler, Pennsylvania on October 5. And Democrat Senator for Pennsylvania, John Fetterman, has said there's growing enthusiasm for Trump in the Keystone State.
And I never agreed with our approach talking about that he's a convicted felon. It's not going to have any impact on that. It's like, what's left? He's been impeached twice. Now it's been 2 attempted assassinations, one where a bullet actually hit him. There's energy and there's kinds of anger on the ground in Pennsylvania, and people are very committed. And Trump is going to be strong.
So much is riding on the critical swing state of Pennsylvania, and I think it's very clever for Trump to return to the scene of that first assassination attempt, because the media's tried to memory hole that whole incident.
Yes. So first of all, a brilliant move by Donald Trump, utterly brilliant, to return to Butler, Pennsylvania. He actually was in Pennsylvania over the past 24 hours as well, in Indiana, Pennsylvania, a town called Indiana, not to be confused with the state. But to go back to the actual scene of when he was literally centimeters at most, probably millimeters away from having his life just taken away from us on the world stage, to go back there in a triumphant return, it is a brilliant political tactic. I mean, this is the kind of tactic that wins Trump all sorts of new converts, new fans there, because they see someone who had the courage to get up there after his brush with death. The angel of death is hovering at that point inches above his head. He gets up there and he has that iconic photo, that historic world iconic photo with the raised fist pump. To go back there, hopefully he imitates that scene. Hopefully he tries his best to recapture that exact scene where he's raising the fist there. It's a brilliant move. But speaking of John Fetterman, give credit where credit is due. John Fetterman, once again, is one of the more rational Democrats out there, not necessarily a particularly high bar these days. But John Fetterman, who has been very sober, actually, when it comes to the conflict in the Middle East compared with the rest of his party, he sounds very sober here as well, saying that the whole convicted felon threat to democracy thing is not playing. No one cares. And the reason that the threat to democracy thing, by the way, Rita, is not playing is because there is one party in America right now that is literally trying to toss the opponent in jail. It's not the Republican Party. It is the party of Biden, Harris, and the Democratic Party. So that dog won't hunt, as they say in the South and whatnot there. They're going to have to beat Trump on the actual issues. The problem, to get back to what we were just saying a few minutes ago, is that they can't talk about the issues because they have a candidate who doesn't know what she stands for and is changing her purported stance every single day, ending in Y.
Oh, gosh, projection is all the left have these days. Accuse your opponents of what you yourself are guilty of, and we see that over and over again, and not just in the US. But I wonder if the honeymoon is finally over for Kamala Harris. A new poll from the New York Times Siena College shows Trump winning in the battleground states of the Sun Belt. He leads Harris in Arizona 50% to 45%. In Georgia, the margin is 4%, 49 to 45%. And in North Carolina, Trump is ahead 49 to 47%. And we know, Josh, that historically, his numbers are understated. There's just a shyness factor when it comes to people telling pollsters that they're going to be voting for Donald Trump.
Totally. So, New York Times Siena considered one of the very best pollsters here in the United States. And this is a great poll for Donald Trump. I mean, they have him comfortably ahead out in Arizona, a state that he obviously has to win. He's leading in most of the higher quality polls out in Nevada as well. Nevada is a state that has not gone for Republicans at a presidential level in 2 decades, since George W. Bush won it in 2004. He's looking pretty good in Georgia right now. It's going to come down to those Rust Belt states, which, by the way, is the reason that I wrote a column all the way back in March saying that he should pick J.D. Vance to be his running mate, because J.D. Vance is quite literally Mr. Rust Belt. I mean, he's from Ohio. He wrote Hillbilly Elegy. He lived this life. So in this final 5-6 weeks of the campaign, let's get Tim Walz, who was born in Nebraska. He's the governor of Minnesota. He is something of a Midwestern guy himself. Let's get him up there against J.D. Vance. They're actually going to have a vice presidential debate next week, so I can't wait for that. But besides the actual kind of fisticuffs of a mano-a-mano debate, let's get them both out there having dueling rallies. Let's see which Midwesterner can actually win the hearts and minds of the actual Rust Belt voters, the white working class, the voters that Trump tapped into in 2016. I would be willing to bet that it's J.D. Vance who can tap into them in a way that Tim Walz cannot. I continue to think that Donald Trump's actually in pretty good shape to win this election.